Evan Carter wipes the sweat off his brow, the scent of oil and burned rubber clinging to him like a second skin. The garage hums around him, wrenches clinking, engines coughing, the low murmur of a radio barely masking the hollow space inside his chest. Another day spent fixing broken things, while the one thing he can't repair drifts further from his hands. At home, the street is a row of painted lies, perfect lawns, polished cars, front doors that hide slow-burning disasters. Neighbors wave from porches, their smiles brittle with exhaustion. Inside his house, Maya Carter sits at the kitchen table, bathed in the cold blue glow of her phone. Her eyes flicker upward at the sound of his boots on the tile, but her smile is quick, practiced, empty. Dinner cools untouched between them. Evan chews in silence, each bite heavier than the last, every word he doesn't say sinking like a stone in his gut. Later, at a family barbecue, Caleb Carter arrives carrying the kind of trouble that doesn't announce itself until it's too late. He's all easy laughter and reckless charm, hugging Maya a little longer than necessary, the muscles in his arms taut against her small frame. Evan watches. He sees the way Maya's fingers trace the seam of Caleb's shirt before pulling away too quickly, as if realizing too late what she had allowed herself to feel. He hears her laugh, an unguarded sound, too bright, too real, the kind of laughter she hasn't shared with him in months. A breeze stirs the back of Evan's neck. He turns, expecting a threat. But there's nothing there. Just the low thrum of unease tightening inside him. He tells himself it's nothing. Family. Wine. Nostalgia. Not every glance hides a betrayal. Not every smile is a warning. Not yet. Evan thought fixing a broken car was harder than fixing a drifting heart. He had no idea that tonight, his loyalty would shatter under the weight of betrayal. If true crime stories like this keep you on the edge of your seat, subscribe to Shocking True Crime Saga, where every story peels back the darkest layers of the human heart. Caleb Carter drifts back into their lives on a cool evening in late September, carrying a duffel bag slung over one shoulder and a smile that tries too hard to be careless. Evan feels nothing but relief. It's been too long since he's seen his younger brother, too long since they sat at the same table without the weight of time or distance between them. They talk late into the night, beers sweating onto the coffee table, old stories pulling laughter from places Evan thought he'd lost. For a moment, it feels like before the world grew sharp edges and closed doors. But under the easy warmth, something cold begins to creep in. At dinner the following week, Evan sees it, the way Caleb's fingers brush Maya's hand as he passes her a plate. A touch too casual. A smile too lingering. Maya blushes. Looks down at her lap. Says nothing. Evan swallows the irritation rising in his throat. He tells himself he's imagining things. Family. Comfort. Familiarity. Not everything is a threat. Later, as they load dishes into the sink, Evan jokes about it. He nudges Maya's shoulder, half smiling, trying to sound playful. Careful, he says, voice light, you're gonna make my brother fall for you. Maya laughs. Too loud. Too fast. The sound bounces off the kitchen walls, hollow and strained, leaving a heavier silence in its place. Evan watches her wipe her hands on a towel, movement stiff, avoiding his eyes. He tells himself it's the wine. The long day. The awkwardness of family under one roof again. He tells himself it's nothing. He told himself it was harmless. That blood was thicker than betrayal. That family would never be the blade in his back. The days slide into each other like oil on pavement, slick and treacherous. Caleb starts dropping by the house when Evan's at work. At first, it's harmless, dropping off borrowed tools, helping Maya with errands, staying for coffee that stretches into lunch. Evan notices the subtle shifts. The way Maya starts wearing makeup on lazy Sundays, hair brushed to a glossy shine even when there's nowhere to go. The way she glances at her phone, smiling at messages she doesn't share. Evan tells himself it's nothing. That she's allowed to feel good about herself. That Caleb's presence is filling some empty spaces that Evan hasn't been able to reach. But the seed of doubt roots itself deeper every time he kisses her cheek and smells unfamiliar cologne on her skin. One evening at the garage, Tommy leans against the open hood of a battered Chevy and tosses a wrench from hand to hand. "You ever notice," he says, casual like he's talking about the weather, "how Caleb looks at her?" The words hit Evan harder than they should. He laughs too sharply, wipes his hands on a rag, shrugs it off. Tommy watches him for a moment longer, then drops the subject, but the look in his eyes lingers. A warning unspoken. That night, Evan drives home faster than usual. The driveway is empty except for Maya's car. He pushes through the front door. The living room smells like wine and something sweeter underneath. The television flickers against the far wall, casting long, ghostly shadows. 2 glasses sit abandoned on the coffee table, red stains bleeding down their sides. Maya appears in the hallway, startled, cheeks flushed. She tells him Caleb just left. She says it too quickly, as if rehearsing. Evan forces a smile, nods, pretends not to notice the tremble in her hands as she gathers the glasses. Pretends not to see the way her wedding ring slides loosely on her finger now, as if even gold can't hold its shape under the weight of secrets. He says nothing. Not yet. Some storms announce themselves with thunder. Others with silence. And sometimes, silence is louder than anything else in the world. The days stretch thin, taut with tension that hums just beneath the surface. Evan grows suspicious, but suspicion alone is a slow poison, no antidote, only suffering. He starts noticing the small betrayals first. Hushed phone calls that end too quickly when he enters the room. Text messages answered with a tight smile and a turned shoulder. New girls' nights out, thrown together with flimsy excuses, rushed explanations, kisses on the cheek that feel like afterthoughts. Late one night, Evan drives home after a double shift and sees Caleb's car parked 2 streets over, tucked into the dark like a secret. He kills the headlights and watches from the corner. Minutes pass. Then a figure slips from the side of the house, lean, familiar, moving too quickly for someone with nothing to hide. Evan grips the steering wheel so hard his knuckles pale to bone. Inside, Maya is already in bed when he enters. She feigns sleep, her breathing too shallow, too deliberate. Evan sits in the dark for a long time, listening to the hollow tick of the clock on the wall, the sound of trust dying slow in his chest. Another night, while gathering laundry, he finds a velvet box hidden beneath layers of sweaters. Inside, a delicate silver necklace glints under the dim bedroom light, a heart pendant, small and expensive. He never bought it. Never saw it before. The weight of it burns in his palm. He starts checking phone bills. Late night calls to Caleb's number, stretching minutes into hours. Messages sent when she thought Evan was asleep beside her. The walls of trust close in like a noose. Evan starts drinking. First a beer after dinner, then something harder, darker, the kind of drink that silences the questions clawing at his brain. He watches. He waits. Not for proof anymore. For confirmation. One afternoon, Mrs. Linton, the old widow next door, calls over the fence, voice casual but edged with something sharper. "Saw your wife downtown," she says, pruning shears snipping the air between them. "Her and your brother. Looked awfully cozy." Evan forces a laugh, waves it off, but inside, something finally snaps. Not loudly. Not violently. Just a quiet fracture, the kind that crumbles the foundation before the house ever knows it's falling. It wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was evidence, smeared across broken trust. Evan stands in the kitchen under the dim hum of the overhead light, staring at the groceries spread across the counter.
He hasn't cooked in months, not properly, not the way he used to when Maya's laughter filled the house like sunlight. Tonight, he tells himself, will be different. Tonight, he will remind her, remind them both, of what they had before the silence settled between them like dust. He burns his thumbs sautéing the chicken. Drops a glass in the sink when his hands shake too hard. But he presses on, plates the food with clumsy care, lights the old candles they used to save for anniversaries. When Maya walks through the door, the surprise on her face freezes halfway to confusion. She smiles, small, strained, and says she's starving. But her phone never leaves the table, buzzing once, twice, each time a crack splintering the thin layer of normalcy Evan tries to spread between them. They eat in near silence. Evan asks about her day. She answers with soft, detached words, her mind clearly elsewhere. He laughs too hard at a memory, hoping to pull her back, hoping to see a flicker of the girl he married. But Maya's gaze keeps sliding past him, as if she's already somewhere he can't follow. Finally, desperate, Evan reaches across the table and takes her hand. Her fingers are cold in his. Thin. Fragile. She looks up, startled. And for a moment, just a breath, the mask slips. Tears glimmer in her eyes, catching the candlelight, making her look young again, real again, like the woman he still dreams about. He squeezes her hand gently, feeling something stir deep inside him, a fragile, stubborn hope that maybe it isn't too late, maybe the ruins can still be rebuilt if they just try hard enough. She blinks the tears away, pulls her hand back with a small, broken smile, and returns to her phone. Evan sits there, hands empty, the warmth of her skin already fading from his fingers. It was the first time he had touched her heart in months. The last time, he'd believe it still beat for him. Late on a Friday evening, Evan stands in the darkened hallway, duffel bag slung over his shoulder, keys jingling just loud enough for Maya to hear. He tells her it's an overnight job, out of town, won't be back until tomorrow. She barely looks up from the couch, nodding absently, thumb scrolling across her phone. He kisses her forehead. She flinches, almost imperceptibly. Evan steps outside, shuts the door behind him, starts the truck, and drives slowly down the street. But 3 houses down, he kills the engine, slipping into the shadow between 2 trees, waiting. Minutes pass. Then an hour. The night thickens around him, humid and stifling. The neighborhood falls silent, the way a town does when it has nothing left to say. Headlights slice through the darkness. A car pulls into his driveway, too fast, too familiar. Caleb. Evan doesn't breathe as he watches his brother climb out, move with the casual confidence of someone who believes the world belongs to him. The front door opens without resistance. Swallows Caleb whole. Evan sits in the dark for a long time, fists clenched, blood roaring in his ears. When he finally moves, it's not a decision, it's a compulsion, a gravitational pull that drags him from the truck and toward the house that used to feel like his own. He opens the door without a sound. Inside, the air is thick with something rotten. Something sweet and spoiled. Upstairs, muffled laughter trickles down the stairwell, light and intimate, a private world he has been shut out from. Each step up the stairs feels like walking into fire. At the top landing, he hesitates. Listens. Here's Maya's giggle, high, breathless. Here's Caleb's voice, low and coaxing. Something inside Evan unravels. He slams the bedroom door open so hard it ricochets off the wall. The scene freezes. Maya half-dressed, tangled in sheets. Caleb sitting too close, his hand trailing a path down her bare thigh. 3 sets of eyes collide in the suffocating space between them. 3 hearts thudding in the hollow drum of betrayal. For a moment, nobody moves. Nobody breathes. There are moments when reality doesn't shatter, it explodes. And all that's left are the shards you bleed on. Evan stands there, fists shaking at his sides,
his body thrumming with the primal, broken thing that grief becomes when it has nowhere else to go. Caleb rises slowly from the bed, hands raised slightly, face pale but defiant. Maya scrambles for the sheet, shame and something colder flickering across her face. Evan takes a step forward. The world tilts, sharp and vicious. Everything he built, everything he trusted, grinds to dust beneath his feet. And deep inside him, something dark wakes up, and decides it's done waiting. In the dim light of the bedroom, the world splinters. Tangled sheets, the raw stink of sweat, the air thick with guilt and something fouler. Maya screams, a jagged sound that slices through Evan's skull. Caleb stumbles backward, naked, panic stripping the cockiness from his face. Evan stands frozen for one impossible heartbeat, the weight of betrayal crashing down on him like a collapsing roof. Then something deeper, older, redder seizes him. He charges. Fists slam into flesh, his, Caleb's, it doesn't matter. Furniture crashes to the floor, a lamp bursts into sparks, the mirror above the dresser fractures into 1,000 glittering wounds. Caleb fights back, wild, desperate, but Evan moves through the pain, through the blood trickling down his temple, blind to anything except the roaring need to end this. They slam into the nightstand. The drawer snaps open, and there, cold and waiting, lies the gun. Evan doesn't think. Doesn't hesitate. His hand closes around it like it always belonged there. Caleb sees the weapon and lunges with a snarl, eyes wild with something that might be fear or fury or both. The room contracts, pulls tight like a noose. The trigger yields under Evan's finger. A single shot rips through the night. Maya's scream shatters what's left of the world, high and raw and endless. Then silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that presses against your eardrums, heavy and cruel, filling the spaces where life used to be. Evan stands there, breathing hard, the gun hanging limp in his hand. At his feet, Caleb crumples into himself, a dark stain blooming across his chest. Maya drops to her knees beside him, sobbing, pressing her hands uselessly against the spreading red. Evan steps back, as if distance could undo what's been done. But there's no undoing it. No rewinding. No forgiveness waiting in the corners of this broken house. Only the heavy, metallic scent of blood. Only the silence. Only one of them breathing. In the end, the weapon wasn't the gun. It was betrayal. And betrayal always leaves bodies behind. The house feels like it's breathing, shallow, frantic gasps that don't belong to any living thing inside it. Red and blue lights slice across the night, painting the walls, the ceilings, the ruined bed in flashing colors of accusation. Boots pound up the stairs. Radios crackle. Shouts tear through the air. Evan sits motionless at the edge of the hallway, the gun still warm and slick in his hand, his thumb resting lightly on the trigger as if unsure whether to pull it again or simply let it fall. The officers storm the bedroom first. Someone curses under their breath. Maya shrieks when they pull her back, arms flailing, trying to shield Caleb's broken body with her own. But there's no shielding him now. The blood pools thick around his torso, staining the floor, staining the sheets, staining everything they touched. Caleb lies twisted, eyes wide open, staring at nothing, disbelief frozen forever on his face. They shout orders Evan barely hears. He stands slowly, the room spinning, his feet moving as if pulled by puppet strings. Maya's voice cuts through the noise, a raw, animal sound that doesn't sound like words until it does. "You monster," she screams, clawing at him as two officers drag her away. He looks at her, really looks, and for the first time sees not the woman he married, but a stranger wrapped in the skin of someone he used to love. They shove him down onto the porch steps, gravel biting into his knees, the wood splintering under his palms. The gun clatters onto the boards beside him, forgotten. Hands twist his arms behind his back. The sharp metallic click of handcuffs snaps the moment shut. Still, Evan doesn't resist. Doesn't speak. Doesn't cry. He stares straight ahead, past the gathering crowd of neighbors peeking through curtains and slipping onto lawns, their faces a blur of curiosity and revulsion. He feels nothing. No rage. No sorrow. Just a hollow ache where love used to be. The man who once built engines with his hands now sat shackled, accused of tearing his own family apart. And somewhere deep inside him, a voice he doesn't recognize whispers the truth he cannot outrun. This was never about love. It was about ownership. And the terrible cost of believing something belonged to you when it never really did. The courtroom smells of old wood and colder judgments. Evan sits at the defense table, his hands cuffed even here, the metal biting into skin already scarred by regret. Around him, a sea of strangers dressed like jurors, but looking more like executioners, shift and murmur and avert their eyes when he meets their gaze. Whispers crawl across the room, snakes with 1,000 tongues. Murderer. Monster. Madman. Evan stares straight ahead. The prosecution paints him as a man who snapped, who chose violence because it was easier than leaving. They talk about motive, about jealousy, about the way blood thins when hearts go bad. His defense tells a quieter story. A man pushed past the breaking point. A man betrayed by the two people he loved most. Temporary insanity, they plead. A mind fractured by years of erosion until it finally caved in. Some believe it. Most don't. The jury deliberates for 2 days. Guilty. Not of murder, but of manslaughter. A mercy Evan never asked for. The sentence is heavy, but the weight he carries is heavier. Maya disappears before the ink dries on the verdict. No forwarding address. No goodbye. She slips into another life, leaving behind the ruins they made together. Evan serves his time in a place where the clocks move slower and the nights stretch into years. But steel bars and concrete walls are not his real prison. The true sentence is waking every morning to the memory of Caleb's blood staining the floor, of Maya's eyes flashing hatred where love once lived. Freedom comes eventually, but the past clings to him like a second skin, unseen, unhealed, unmoving. He learns to live in the quiet spaces, the in-between moments where nothing hurts because nothing is allowed to feel. Still, some nights, when the world is too silent to ignore, he hears the gunshot again. Sees the look on Caleb's face again. Feels the moment everything split open and swallowed him whole. Was it rage, or heartbreak that pulled the trigger? When betrayal wears the face of family, who do you trust with the broken pieces? In the end, only one brother walked out alive. But no one survived. Have you ever seen a betrayal so deep it tore a family apart? Tell us in the comments, your story might be the voice someone else needs to hear. Subscribe to Shocking True Crime Saga. Because here, we don't just tell stories. We unearth the tragedies hidden in the cracks of everyday life.